If you've struggled with stress, balance, or burnout, and simply felt discouraged or even defeated, if you're ready to move from force to flow and enjoy ultimate Zen success in your career, health, or relationships, then this podcast is for you. Your host, Carissa Sims, is an entrepreneur, corporate consultant, best-selling author, meditation teacher, and healer who has found her own Zen success. Here's your host, Carissa.
Welcome to this week's episode of Zen Success. Today with me, I have the pleasure of speaking with Jonathan Robinson. He is amazing. He's like my hero with everything he's done. I mean, all the spiritual people you've connected with. Wow. I am so happy that your publicist reached out to me. He is, first of all, a New York Times bestselling author and co-host of the popular podcast Awareness Explorers. And Jonathan has made a career out of getting to know the greatest spiritual leaders of our time. From Oprah to Adyashanti, he has interviewed over 100 notable people to get their take on how to live a happy, peaceful, and meaningful life. And you know, it's so interesting. That is part of the reason why I started You Inspired. And now I have another podcast called Zen Success. And, so anyway, I find it interesting. I never set that intention to interview the amazing people that you did, but I really wanted to give insight to my audience about spiritual truths and wisdom. So it's amazing. Okay. So he has shared what he learned on shows such as Oprah, The Tonight Show, and news programs on CNN and NBC. I mean, amazing publicity. Okay, so welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you, Chris. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm so lucky to have you with like so many people. You went from Oprah to Zen Success. I'm like, yes. I have had a couple people on my show that have been on Oprah, but it's always super exciting because then I feel like, oh, I'm only like 2 degrees of separation. So how did you get on Oprah?
Well, that's an interesting story. You know, one of the things I've tried to do is interview the most successful people in every field, but mostly in the spiritual field. Everybody from, Deepak Chopra and late Mother Teresa to the Dalai Lama. And I think success leaves clues. So I interviewed a couple people who were on Oprah and I asked them how they got on. But what actually ended up happening is I do believe in divine grace, that sometimes if you have a good intention and you are open to learning, good things happen. So I had a book actually did well called Life's Big Questions. And I tried to promote it and wasn't getting anywhere. And a friend of mine said, you should just give up on the book. I thought that's unusual advice, but she said, just give up.
That was before you were a New York Times bestseller, right?
Right, exactly. Okay. So, but she said, if at some point you feel like you want to do something, like, write a letter to somebody or do something, do that. So I wrote a letter to CNN and they loved the idea of focusing on the questions in the book on Christmas. Well, on Christmas, there's only religious programming and CNN. So instead of 2 million people watching, there were 40 million people watching. And one of them was Oprah. And so the interview went so well. It was an amazing interview where we asked, questions like, what's the most miraculous thing you've ever learned? Or what's the most miraculous thing you've ever seen? And it ended up being a wild thing where callers in were talking about angels and aliens. And I was talking about meeting the Dalai Lama and all this stuff. So it ended up being a lot of fun. And she devoted 2 shows to that book. And of course, it became a bestseller then.
Oh my God. Okay. So do you remember what year this was?
This was 1994, I believe.
Ah, wow. That's incredible. I mean, that's pretty much the top of the food chain when you're trying to sell a book, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. And then I was on her show for other books as well. And we even worked on a project together. And she was interested, since I've interviewed pretty much every spiritual leader anybody's heard of, she wanted to know how'd you do that and what did you learn from it? And so this most recent book, The Enlightenment Project, is really like the greatest hits of what those people told me, plus their greatest stories, like what it's like being around those people. And I wanted to do it for me. I'm selfish, but then other people were interested. So I thought I'd put it all in one book.
Oh, that's beautiful. And when are you releasing, or did this book already get released?
Came out 2 days ago.
2 days.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Oh my gosh, everybody, you have to support him. You have to support Jonathan and buy his book. Okay, so tell us a little bit about who you interviewed, who you selected to be in this very special. It feels like divine. I mean, it feels like just magical when I tune into the energy. But who did you interview for this book?
Well, I didn't really interview anybody for the book. I interviewed 100 people that I wanted to meet. And then I share some of the most poignant stories of what I learned from such people. But also I mostly learned, the book is called The Enlightenment Project because I think we're all on a path of trying to become more peaceful, loving, and enlightened. And it ends up when you talk to a lot of very enlightened people, they say very similar things as to what lessons they learned and what methods help them. And interestingly, the methods that most trigger enlightenment or a transformation of consciousness are not well known. The traditional methods like Vipassana meditation or TM or yoga almost never work. And methods that almost nobody knows are like incredibly effective, meaning a person there's been people who've done a method for 2 hours and they transition to a state of permanent bliss. That used to really piss me off because I've been working on this for like 40 years. I was a very depressed kid. And so that initially got me motivated to find out what can lead to more peace and joy in me. And I think the methods have gotten a lot better over time.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, because I always feel that meditation is such a wonderful vehicle. And you named this book properly, The Enlightenment Project, because you're going to enlighten a lot of people with what you learned. So can you give us one of the gems from the book?
Sure. During this interview, I hope to give various ones.
Okay.
But one of the things, Carissa, that helped me hone in on what I needed to do was that I'm pretty lazy. So if methods take a long time, I tend not to use them. And ends up a lot of people are like that. So one method, which is very simple, is enlightenment is like the experience of perceiving the world without any sense of ego, without any sense of past or future. So if you imagine that you were just born, or like you're an alien that just came to Earth and you've been given this body, but you don't know what anything means. You don't know if this feeling going through your body is good or bad. You don't even have a label of good or bad. It's just sensations, sights, sounds in this moment, just like how a newborn is. And in a way, enlightenment is kind of like that, where there's no sense of good or bad. There's just isness in this present moment without thought of the future, without any baggage from the past. And that ends up being an incredibly peaceful way of being. So, we'll talk about other methods, but that's kind of like the point of view of what enlightened people, how they experience the world.
Mm-hmm. And so how do they get to that state? Is it through deep breathing? Is it practice? Is it removing blocks and from the past?
Well, all of the above can work. What we found is that different things work for different people at different times. For Mother Teresa, she found that she felt bliss when she was serving people. So she did that. the Dalai Lama meditates. But even doing something like meditation, in the book, I think I talk about 10 different types of meditation. And you got to find the one that works for you, because the one that you were taught or are most popular tend to be the least effective, interestingly enough. They've now done studies as to what methods lead to the most peace. And they can now say, oh, this tends to work for 2% of people. This tends to work for 80% of people. And that's really important information. So there's now a science of enlightenment, and a lot of people are having much better results than even 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Wow, I have so many questions. I'm just going to have to read this book. And so during these 100 people that you've interviewed, were you ever in awe of them? I mean, like speechless, like, and just like, okay, well, just tell me everything. I mean, did you ever have a loss of words for these people?
Well, early on, I did. Like most of them I've interviewed in person. And, I have a podcast called Awareness Explorers, in which I interview a lot of them. But early on, I wanted to interview Mother Teresa, but I didn't even have the money to go to India. So this is in like 1992, where I go to the library and find a phone number for the organization she created called Sisters of Charity. Well, in 1992, calling India, a number in India was like calling the International Space Station. The chance of getting through were little. So I call, and a woman answers.
$97 too?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So a woman answers the phone, and I say, I'm Jonathan Robinson. I'm trying to get in touch with Mother Teresa to interview her for a book. And the woman says, yes, this is Ma. I said, hi, Ma. I'm trying to interview Mother Teresa. And she says, yes, this is Ma. And I recognize her voice. Mother Teresa answered the phone. And I just started crying. I couldn't believe the miracle of that. And so I was
beautiful.
Yeah, I was at a loss of words there. But she gave me time for an interview. She said, gee, I never answer the phone, but God told me to answer the phone.
Wow, she's in tune. And you are too. It's like you are following that divine guidance to call, go to the library and look up that number. That's amazing.
I can definitely be persistent if I feel like I'm on. Well, here's a story about Ram Dass. So I was trying to, who Ram Dass is probably. I was trying to
just
interview.
For our audience, maybe you can explain, or you could look it up, audience. But
yeah, he was a American Harvard psychologist who went to India, found a guru, and became a spiritual teacher. I was really inspired by him, so I really wanted to interview him. So I had no luck over a bunch of months. Finally, I get a call from him, and he says, I don't do these interviews anymore. I get like 40 requests a week. And I said, okay, I understand, no problem. And then he says, but I've never seen anybody as persistent as you. You've called 40 times, you've sent me 20 letters. The reason I'm calling is I want to know if you're on a mission from God or if you're a complete lunatic. And I said, well, I'm on a mission from God. He said, okay, I'll give you the interview.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. That is impressive that you were that persistent. And there was something in your heart that knew to never give up. I mean, it seems.
Yeah, I did live with a spiritual teacher for a bunch of years, and he taught us that, if something's important to you, really go for it. And I took that to heart. And, I don't let a little bit of the fear of rejection get in the way of a larger mission. And I think it's really important for me personally to tap into more peace and love, but it's important for everybody, especially in this day and age where the world's hurting so much, that if you can give people simple ways to tap into deeper peace and love and consciousness, there's nothing more important than that.
Yes. Agreed. Agreed. Okay. So I wanted to explore a question. Do you feel out of all these interviews that you've learned that it's possible to get out of depression or any type of isolation feelings of anxiety? Do you feel like it's possible to be free of those feelings?
Well, I can speak from personal experience. When I was 12, my parents were going to put me in a mental hospital because I suffered from severe depression and suicidal thoughts.
And how did that manifest when you were a child?
Well, when you're 12, I didn't feel like a child. I just felt like, the world was caving in, and I was hit on a regular basis by my stepfather. I felt out of control, overwhelmed. And I think a lot of people feel that nowadays. Depression is a real problem. So I turned to self-help books. And by age 13, I was meditating every day.
That's amazing. So what made your parents not just decide to send you there?
Well, because over time they saw that I was making efforts,
I see.
reading the books and meditating and such. And, even when you feel really depressed, just the fact that you feel like you're making progress feels really good. So I could tell I was making progress. And then I decided, well, maybe there's really good methods and ideas for entering your full potential. So I kind of became interested in that subject. I became a psychotherapist, and then it became like a hobby. Like, there's something out there that someone knows that would really make a difference in my life, and I want to find out what that is. And you never know what it is. I talked to one person who said a simple statement to me that still reverberates in my head. He wasn't very known. He was a spiritual teacher, but he said, here's a mantra you can use. Right now is the most important moment of your entire life, because it's the moment you're in. The past doesn't matter. That's just a memory. The future, you'll never be in the future, because when you're in there, it will be now. So just relate to this moment like it is the single most important moment of your entire life, and that the universe is trying to get a message through to you now. There's something to learn now. There's something to get now. And if you approach life with that urgency and sense of presence, your life will transform. So, this was a guy who'd written a book that sold 11 copies, but that reverberates with me. And every now and then I've met gurus that would give me a technique that I'll tell the story of a guru who gave me a technique that takes 5 seconds that transformed my life. And I use this technique maybe 10 times a day.
Wow, that's impressive.
Well, it only takes 5 seconds to do it. So that's less than a minute of effort.
Yeah. Before we get into that, I want to mention, I don't want to gloss over what the lesson and the message that this person gave to you about being here right now. And it's interesting. I was feeling that sometimes my spiritual downloads are music, and Van Halen wrote a song Right Now. And I hear that in my head a lot. And it's so funny. And I had to do a social media post on it because I was just like, okay, I got to get this out. And it's exactly that. And it felt so powerful. Like I really felt it in my heart that it could help a lot of people. And so maybe it did.
Yeah. Well, we need all the help we can get now. Good ideas, good songs, good movies, good methods, good books.
Yeah, absolutely.
Podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's get into that technique that you do 10 times a day. It's wow.
Yeah. Well, realize then 10 times a day, it's still under a minute a day of effort because it only takes 5 seconds. But it's an interesting story. When I ask people, spiritual teachers, what advice they have, a surprising number of them said, you want to be aware of the importance of gratitude, that gratitude is a doorway to the divine. I hadn't looked at it that way. So this kind of got me be aware of methods of tapping into gratitude. So a friend of mine came back from India and he looked like he was transformed. I said, what went on? He said, my guru gave me this magical mantra for feeling gratitude all the time. I said, really? That's amazing. And he said, yeah, it really works. And I said, well, tell me what the mantra is. And he said, no, you have to get it directly from the guru. Now, have you been to India, Carissa?
Yes, I have. But I did not go on a spiritual journey there. I didn't go to an ashram or anything, but I really resonate with India. I think in a past life, I was probably there. Yeah. And I went for my friend's wedding and we toured around and I actually saw a client. So it was a business write-off. So it was a very different trip. So I think I'd have to take another trip for a spiritual journey.
Yeah. Well, it's a hard place to travel too. It's, 18,000 miles away. And then when I got there, I had to take a rickshaw for 4 hours to get to the ashram. And then I had to wait in line for 3 hours to talk to the guru. So I'm kind of like jet lagged and worn out. Finally,
oh my God, you went right there. You didn't even go to the hotel. Wow. No. You are driven.
So I finally get a chance to talk to him. He's in a white flowing robe and I tell him I want this mantra, and he says in his Indian accent, yes, my mantra is the most powerful mantra on earth. He leans in to whisper it in my ear, and he says, whenever possible, repeat these words. The mantra I give you are the words, thank you. Well, I look at him like, you got to be kidding me. I say, that's it? I traveled 18,000 miles to get thank you, that's it? So he looks at me and he says, no, that's it is the mantra you have been using. That makes you feel like you never have enough. My mantra is thank you, not that's it. That's it will take you nowhere. Well, I'm totally pissed off at this point. So I look at him, I go, well, thanks for nothing. And he looks at me and he says, thanks for nothing is not the mantra. You must feel your heart for just a couple of seconds and then sincerely say thank you to the universe for this blessing. And soon you'll be filled with gratitude. Well, I'm still pissed off and disappointed, but I figured I traveled all that way. I would do what he said. So I go into a taxi. It's like 110 degrees in India, but the taxi had air conditioning. So I go, oh, thank you for this air conditioning. And then I get to my hotel, I check in, and there's a bottle of water there, clean water. I go, thank you for this water. And then I open up my laptop, there's Wi-Fi. I go, thank you for my laptop. What an amazing machine. I Skype my wife. I'd say, thank you for Skype. I see my wife, thank you for my wife. I'm thinking I'm talking to my wife on the other side of the planet instantly for free. And it hits me how lucky we are that we have all this stuff. And tears start rolling down my face. My wife looks at me and she says, that must have been some mantra. And I said, you have no idea.
So you did not say thank you to her out loud. So she didn't know your mantra yet. You were only saying it in your heart. Right.
And you say it to God or the universe or whatever works for you. But you just feel the center of your chest. And in deep gratitude, like you might to a friend who did something for you, say thank you. Because, people are listening to this podcast for free. We're giving great information for free. People go to the refrigerator and they get great stuff that's cold, that's kept, fresh. I mean, the blessings are amazing, but you have to have a method to tap into that richness.
And then does it get you in a vibration to be receiving more to be grateful for, more to say thank you to? Like, does it kind of shift your frequency into that space?
Well, everything has a momentum to it. So if you've had a bad day and everything looks like, people are out to get you and people are no good, that has a vibration and a motivation that tends to make things worse. And the same thing with higher vibrations that, the days where you smile, people will smile back. If you tap into gratitude and you get that momentum going, soon it kind of is like a flywheel. It takes effect on its own. So the first 10 times of saying thank you can be a little bit challenging. The next 10 come really easy, and the next 10 are automatic. You just tap into this world where everything's a gift. And these simple ways to tap into higher consciousness, I think, are the best ways for us to transform the world, because you can't transform the world if you feel like crap.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back to your journey as a child. So at 13, did you feel like you had abilities? Like, are you an empathetic person? Do you feel deeply? Do you feel others' feelings? Or did you ever tune into your own spiritual abilities?
Well, I wouldn't say I was particularly empathetic. I've tried to become more empathetic. I'd say that everybody has some gift, some talent.
Mm-hmm.
Mine was probably that I was pretty smart, and so I used that ability to read self-help books and ask what's working, what's not. Somebody else might use the talent of their athletic ability or the fact that they are very empathetic. A story about Oprah, which is interesting. The first time I was on her show, she came up during the commercial break and said, hey, I really loved your book and your story about your dogs. How's your dog doing? And I said, well, he's not doing so well. He started to have seizures. And Oprah said, what's his name? And I said, his name's Rama. And she said, oh, be sure to pray for him. Well, that was our entire conversation off camera. Well, 2 years later, I'm on her show again, and she comes up to me and she said, good to see you again, Jonathan. By the way, how's Rama? Well, I didn't put together that the most loved person on earth would remember a 10-second conversation from 2 years ago about my dog. Right. So I said, who's Rama? And she said, Rama's your dog. He was having seizures and I prayed for him. How's he doing? And I was like, my reality just melted. I said, how did you do that? And she said, well, when I was 15, I just had a stillborn child after being raped for a second time. I was in the quote, retarded people's class at school. I was being physically abused. And I asked myself, what do I have going for me? And she said, the only thing I have going for me is that I like people and I can be kind. So I used that gift because that was the only thing I could do. And it seems like every day as I've used that gift, things went well. And, I'm very happy that I had that one gift. That seems like it worked out pretty good. So, everybody has some gift. And if we really use it, I think our life mission becomes clearer and we can affect more people.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then as a child, did you still live with your stepdad and mom?
Yeah. Yeah.
And did the abuse still go on? Was he still hitting you?
Well, as I got older, I got bigger, so he stopped.
He stopped as you got bigger. But also maybe you had developed some inner strength inside of you that he felt.
That could be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But was your father in your life at all?
I'd see him about once a month, and my parents got divorced when I was young, and my father tried to gain custody, but back then custody always really went with the mom.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. So that's good that you had an ongoing relationship and he was supportive. Your dad was supportive about your spiritual journey.
Yeah, that also helped, because you kind of need support, especially in this day and age. A lot of people are going through a hard time. So I tell them, luckily there's podcasts for support, there's friends, there's books, there's videos. That you need to surround yourself with support because the vibration of the world is pretty low at this point.
Yeah, surround yourself with positive people, a higher vibration. I mean, that's what you were seeking too when you were seeking out these spiritual leaders. Okay, so how old were you? Tell me about this progression. How old were you when you really started to seek out Mother Teresa and all these leaders? Because, I mean, you've been on this journey for a long time.
Yeah, I'm actually 147 years old. So.
Okay.
No.
Oh, you're ageless, actually. You're totally, I mean, you're just shining bright. And yeah.
Well, really, I started seek out inspiring people at age 13. My uncle was a hypnotist, and I was fascinated by hypnosis. I had a friend who was kind of fearless at school. So you don't need to interview the Dalai Lama to be inspired. It could be just, a person at the office. So I really started at that age, but I got into the hobby of interviewing well-known spiritual teachers around age 22, 23.
Oh, still pretty young.
Yeah, still pretty young.
And then you hadn't written a book at that time, right?
No, my first book was, I guess I was about 30.
Okay, yeah. Amazing. And how many books have you written?
14 now.
Wow.
Or how many books have come through me, because I write really easily. That was another gift. And luckily I write well. I try to make my books really entertaining. And there's a lot of funny stories in them. There's a lot of poignant stories that really affected me. And I think a good story can really impact people.
Oh, yeah. Amazing. And what has been like your favorite person? Was it Mother Teresa or Oprah?
It's kind of like asking which is your favorite kid.
Yeah, don't tell the other ones.
Right. So many of them were really kind and humble that I really liked. And also, these people have human faults as well. But it's hard.
It's like surprising, like the whole story you shared about Oprah. It's like you don't think that somebody so famous would be so kind, have such an amazing memory about your dog.
Yeah. And I found that true about a lot of teachers. Dr. Wayne Dyer was very kind to me. But, my time with the Dalai Lama does stand out just because, here was a guy whose friends and family were all tortured. And yet he emanates such love and joy. And being around him was a lot of fun. We laughed a lot. He has a great sense of humor. And I just really enjoyed him.
Yeah, that's amazing. What did you learn from the Dalai Lama?
Well, actually, I have something I can show you that I learned.
Okay.
I asked him how to deal with conflict, between people.
That's a good question.
And he said, well, he has a ancient Tibetan talisman he can give me that will help end conflict between people. And I was very excited. So he goes out of the room, he comes back and he tells me to close my eyes. Then he tells me to open, he has this thing that will end conflict between people. He has me open my eyes. And when I open my eyes, the Dalai Lama is wearing a big red bozo nose. And he said, it's really almost impossible to argue or have conflict with somebody wearing a bozo nose. And then he laughed uproariously and we both laughed. And it's true, you can give this to couples who are arguing and it'll end the argument right away.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, do you have your own family now?
Well, my wife and I have 2 dogs who we kind of consider our kids.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
That's great. What kind of dogs do you have?
They're what's called mini golden retrievers.
Oh, I've never heard of those.
Yeah, no, they're great dogs. In fact, my previous book was called Conversations with Dog. And it's about a talking dog that teaches his owner how to love again.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Maybe you can make that into a children's book someday.
That might be a good idea. Yeah, no, the book really touched a lot of people. It became a bestseller in England. And, I think our dogs are almost like an enlightened being. They're always in the present. Mm-hmm. They're very loving. They tell you exactly what they want. And I think they're here to help human beings open their hearts.
That is so beautiful. I have a dog too. I always grew up with dogs. I did have a golden retriever growing up. That was like my first dog, but not a mini. So I'll
Yeah,
have to look that up and see. I bet they're really cute because
they are.
golden retrievers are just gorgeous. So tell me about your podcast, Awareness Explorers. Did you get any of these famous people on your podcast, and when did you start it?
Well, it started about 4 years ago. And yeah, we've interviewed a lot of famous teachers. I don't know who you know, Adyashanti, Byron Katie,
Yeah, amazing. I do
Rupert
know.
Spira, Deepak Chopra, a lot of people. I have a co-host, and we both realized we had the same mission: get the greatest hits of spiritual ideas and methods onto a podcast. And now, of course, I've done that in the Enlightenment Project book, because I think this information, a lot of people have ideas and methods from 2,000 years old. Well, they were good 2,000 years ago, but we live in a different world now. We live in a world that's much faster paced. So we need more effective methods that work quicker. So when we interview these people, we always ask them for the best stuff. And in fact, we have a website, awarenessexplorers.com, in which we ask all these, teachers, give us your best 10-minute guided meditation.
Yay.
And
That's
so now
amazing.
we have like 100 guided meditations from 100 spiritual teachers that are all free on the website. And whenever possible, I like to, give this stuff free or very low cost.
Yeah.
Because, the world needs it. And if you do good things, I think good things come back to you.
Oh, that's amazing. I feel so in alignment with you because that is what I did on You Inspired. We would have, not actually all the spiritual people I had didn't always do meditation. So sometimes I would do a meditation at the end because I do meditation and I'm a spiritual healer. And I would love to be on your show. I'm pitching myself, but also I want to connect you with some other spiritual leaders that have helped me on my journey. I don't know if you've heard of Master Sha, SHA. He's a medical doctor from China and he does soul healing. So you could look him up. And then also Masajati, two separate words. You have heard of him. Yeah. So anyway, just a recommendation of amazing people. I have not had Masajati on my show, but I have done a healing certification with him and many healings from him, and kind of he put me on this path. And Master Sha, at one of his workshops, he picked me out of a crowd, and all of a sudden I'm like healing all these people in the audience. So it was, he's really amazing. And he has a book out right now too. So I would love to support you. Anyone I've had on my show, I can recommend them. I don't just interview. I just interview interesting people. I'm not just, but I don't have a specific purpose to interview spiritual leaders. I am just excited when I can, So these people like the Dalai Lama. So what was the process? Did you get to his assistant to interview him?
That's a little bit of a funny story. As I'm talking to Mother Teresa on the phone, I asked her, how do you meditate? And Mother Teresa, I loved her answer because so humble. She said, I'm not very good with meditation. The Dalai Lama knows a lot about that. Would you like his phone number? I said, that would be very nice.
That was your divine appointment. Yes, oh my exactly. God. That's amazing. So it's like this, like you've set this intention in your heart, and then the universe is just attracting these people to you and also giving you the guidance, right?
Yeah. And, not to say that I haven't had to deal with a fair amount of difficulty or challenge, but I think God just said, well, this guy's not going to give up. Let's eventually, give him the stuff.
Yeah. So what are your spiritual practices now that you've learned from all these people? What do you like to do? Do you believe in God? Are you Christian? Are you spiritual? Like, what is your path?
Well, I've spent a year in a Christian monastery, a year in a Buddhist monastery, a year in a Jewish monastery, and a year in a Hindu monastery. So I'm pretty eclectic. But I do have a very clear belief system, which is you should do what works. Okay. And that's why in the Enlightenment Project book, I give what I consider the methods that have been most effective for most people. And I say, be experimental, try a few of these and see what works. If you try something and you're bored to death and nothing happened, don't do it again. If you try something and your head explodes with peace, joy, and love, maybe you should do that one again. So one of the methods I use now, which I enjoy and I do as meditation, is I made a list of everybody in my life who I've ever loved or liked, even if I had a falling out with them, like an old girlfriend or something. But, it ended up being about 50 people. And I think of that person and I think of what I loved and appreciated about them. And I get to a place where I can feel open-hearted towards them for about a minute. And then I go on to the next person. Well, what that ends up doing is bathing yourself in a feeling of love for an hour or however long I do it. And that's very powerful. People will change their life to feel love for 2 minutes, but to feel it for an hour and to go deep into how much you feel love for people is a very healthy tonic. And it is a very heart-opening experience that if you can experience that bliss or that love every day, it really changes your day.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you have any advice for some of the podcasters out there or entrepreneurs on how to access celebrities and interview them?
I guess I do have a lot of experience with that. A combination of persistence and making it really easy for them. I'll say whenever we'll do it whenever possible, take half an hour. You'll reach these people.
What's the value they're going to get out of it?
Yeah. But, sometimes it's actually been, I was so persistent that they realized it would take more time to avoid me than it was going to take to just do the friggin' interview.
So they throw their hands up and then they're yours.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So do you feel like, so you got on CNN. Do you feel like there was a ripple effect because Oprah saw you there? And then how did you get on the Today Show and other media outlets?
There is a ripple effect. There's kind of like climbing a ladder of credibility. Mm-hmm. At first it would be interview a guy who had written a book that sold 11 copies and then, somebody who had sold more copies and more. And so you do, I had some articles written about me in the local paper and then in USA Today and then, the cover of Newsweek. And it's a multi-year journey, but my goal was always to use my gift of trying to be very practically useful to people. And people get your sincerity if you're persistent and you learn the game. So I'd say that was my journey, but also, plenty of times I fail and I just keep going.
Yeah, that's amazing. Did you write a letter to the Today Show about a potential topic? Did you kind of study the show and think about what their audience might like?
I have done that with the Today Show. Ends up one of the hosts had read one of my books and they said that it saved their marriage. So it's kind of they contacted me.
Wow.
Letters crossed. So
what was that book that saved her marriage?
Well, that was called Communication Miracles for Couples.
Oh.
And it ended up selling really well. It still sells well. And Jay Leno had me on the show because he said it saved his marriage. I really, a lot of books, whether they be spiritual or psychology, they don't have like the easiest, most practical things. They're more like advice. Well, advice is nice, but we all know it's better to be loving than to always prove that how right you are. We know that stuff. What we don't know is how to change things, how to tap into love or empathy when you need it. And so that's why my mission has always been, what are the most powerful? We all have smartphones now. Why do we all have smartphones? Because they're friggin' awesome. You can do so much with them. They're powerful. They're quick. You can talk to people on the other side of the planet. You can look at your cat. They're so versatile. Well, there's also what I would call inner technology, things that really do work. And your mission, should you decide to accept it, Carissa, is to find what works best for you.
Yeah, beautiful. And it feels so freeing, because a lot of times people, including myself, will be like, okay, these are the steps that you need to do. And like when I'm working with my clients, I'll do that. So it's just amazing that you have that attitude. Was that an iPhone 13 mini?
That was the iPhone 12, actually. Yeah.
Oh, 12. Okay.
Pretty amazing instrument.
Yeah, because I have a mini and I was like, oh, it looks like mine a little bit. Yeah, so that's great advice. Okay, so what's next for you? What are you going on tour, a book tour, or what's happening? Because you have a publisher, right? You've always had a publisher?
No, I self-published this book. I wanted to be in control of it. And,
great.
Part of the reason I self-publish is that I can give away parts of the book for free.
Oh, great.
So if people go to my website, theenlightenmentproject.net, they can get the first couple of chapters for free, plus an audio of the 5 best and easiest ways to awaken to peace. And so that's all free at theenlightenmentproject.net. And, I can give a lot of stuff for free that if you use a publisher, that tends to be harder.
I see, because they want to control the rights.
Yeah.
But previously you had a publisher, like for your first book or other books?
For 12 of my 14 books, I had publishers.
Oh, okay. And that was in the beginning of your journey?
Yeah. But nowadays I tell people that, it's probably better to self-publish than to find a publisher. Really, it's so easy and you get more money and you have more control.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. And sometimes they have hybrid agencies too that will help you a little bit. So any other exciting projects? What's coming up for you?
Well, I always leave it open for the universe to kind of give me input.
Yay.
It looks like I'll be talking about this book for the next year. I'm really proud of this book and the reviews have been great. So I'm really hoping it can affect a lot of people. Obviously, I'll be doing the podcast. I do volunteer in jails teaching meditation to prisoners and really enjoy that. I wasn't able to do that in COVID, but that's starting up again. And, every day I try to ask, how can I serve better? How can I what's in the way of more peace? Some good questions that keep me on the path, because there's a lot of distractions now. I say, we're all subject to, we're all being impacted by WMDs, widgets of mass distraction.
That is for sure. That is for sure. I had to get off Facebook myself for a little bit because I just was getting into other people's lives and worlds and not focusing on my own, or just like, that's so true. So last question, what is Zen success to you?
Zen success. Well, think of it as like 2 wings of a plane. On one wing, you want to be effective in the world. And you want to learn what leads to being effective in the world. And that's marketing, finances, relationship skills. The other wing, though, is what I would call becoming more enlightened or becoming more in touch with the peace, joy, and love within you. Jesus said the kingdom of heaven's within you. Buddha said peace is within you. It's not outside of you. So we have to kind of balance those two wings, because people who are really successful but lose the peace, that's like a plane with one wing attached. It's going to go around in a circle and then crash. Or people with just peace that can't, remember their zip code. Well, they have peace at least, but they're not doing much good in the world. So I think Zen success is kind of like balancing those two things in a way that helps you to really soar.
Oh, that's a beautiful definition. That's amazing. All right. Well, it's been such a pleasure connecting with you, Jonathan, and hearing about your journey from depressed to blessed and your amazing book, The Enlightenment Project. And I know you will continue serving so many people. And I love you're going to the prisons and connecting with them and meditating, teach them how to meditate. That's amazing. I love that. You're inspiring to me, calling Mother Teresa and her giving you Dalai Lama's phone number. It's like so amazing. So thank you for joining me. And I will put how to buy your book and your podcast website in the show notes. Any last words for our audience?
Well, let me just share a quick story that inspired me. I went to a guru in India, and when I got to his place, he told me to sit in front of him, and he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Jonathan from the United States." And he just laughed. And he said, "No, who are you really?" And I said, "Well, I'm an author." He shook his head no. I said, "Well, I'm a spiritual seeker." And he shook his head no. I said, "Well, I'm a man." He shook his head no. Finally, I ran out of roles that I play. So I just looked him in the eyes. And when I looked him in the eyes, he sent me this overwhelming amount of energy of love that was like a tsunami. And I started crying in his lap because I'd never felt such deep love and peace. And as I'm like crying in his lap, he pats me on the head and he said, "This love that you feel, this peace that you feel now, that's who you really are. And your job in life is to never forget it." And I think that that's true, that we are here to find that peace and love and let go of the distractions and not forget what's really important.
Beautifully said. What an inspiring last message. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Thank you, Carissa, for inviting me.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Zen Success. I want to invite you to an in-person event. I'll be having a very special event for the Lionsgate portal when it peaks on August 8th, 2022. The event is on Eventbrite. For more information, you can contact me, Carissa Sims 333 at gmail.com. You can also search on Eventbrite Lionsgate Portal Activation in Boulder, Colorado at the Valley Soul Retreat Center. I will be giving away one free healing with each ticket. So if you can't make it, at least sign up and get a free healing. Thank you so much for listening. Have a blessed day.